Go.
Hello and welcome back to my garage. We've got a serious problem. It's almost impossible to talk about Masstime. The reason for that is because the frameworks that we operate by in our minds have been so shaped and so, I don't know if there's a better word for it, manipulated by the principle of inertia that it infects virtually every way we think. So let's go back a step. You remember that reference to the tale of two brains and that empty box? It's so typical of the male mind. It's also exclusive. And if you remember, the female brain was thought of as something totally interconnected, no boxes, but there's something else. See, when you change space-time to mass-time, you're virtually... See, now it's difficult not to stumble over words because we don't have a framework. It's difficult to think what kind of system mass-time can possibly belong to. And actually, it belongs more to the female mind way of thinking. It's not to say that men can't think this way, but women can. Male and female doesn't have anything to do with sexual orientation. Now, I want to demonstrate a thought experiment here. Remember we said that mass-time commands and space acts. Well, now you've turned the picture completely upside down. Because before, where you would say, when I release an object and it falls, you would say, it's because of the force of gravity. You no longer have that option. Now, when you say, I'm going to let go of this tin, the reason it goes down is because it wants to. We have no way of understanding it. In fact, it sounds preposterous. You mean to say that the whole universe wants something? It wants to fall, it wants to gather, it wants. Well, here's the problem. You see, when you use the word science, you're actually referring to the empty box, because the literal meaning of science is derived from the Latin to know, which is scire, and hence science. But there is another way of knowing that has no reference point in that way of knowing, which is conoscere, which also means to know. But because in the English language we tend to use the word to know, we don't distinguish between these two very different ways of knowing. And the other way of knowing, conoscere, actually means to know personally, to know intimately. And it's very different to knowing facts. So when you say, or when one says, the thing falls because it wants to, actually what we're saying is that desire is a key to understanding reality. And in a way, we already know this, because we are more than we are thinking things, we're feeling things. But science automatically excludes any reference to that. You can think, for instance, of Lemontin's famous statement that however bad science gets, what we have to do is make sure that God doesn't get his foot in the door. Well, here we're not talking about God. But nonetheless, one can still sense that whatever else happens in science, one thing is for sure, we must not let desire get its foot in the door. And that is really where the problem lies. It's going back again to Kant, who said, we put these marker stones in place and we won't go any further. Well, those marker stones actually refer to cutting out anything to do with desire. Remember, he referred to it as styptic knowledge. So it's no longer a question about can something be proved by science, but almost as if we've hit the rock face. We've hit those marker stones. Lee Smolin has already suggested we have done so by saying that we've discovered nothing new for 30 years. So perhaps this is a time when this question of desire, in a more hard form, something that we can explore. We need concepts, ideas that make these a viable option. So how this can be done, we may begin exploring next time. So I think we'll leave it at that for this session.